everybody. Welcome back to the EP breakdown with me. I'm Chelsea, Rogan, and Dason, the masterminds behind this beautiful album. This time we'll be getting into Octosun as our final installment of this series. So I hope you're ready to see a beautiful breakdown of the mixing mastery behind this EP. Dason and Rogan, take it away.
Thanks, Chelsea.
This is the beefy guy.
Big boy. Okay.
Yeah. This is actually two songs just kind of mushed together. So there's Octosun, and then there's a reprise of the first real track, Wings.
Right.
At the very end. And yeah, I think it's like just under 6 minutes, and then like pretty much 4 minutes. It's like 9 minutes 58 seconds total for this track. So they both come to combined just under 10 minutes. And yeah, there's like 8 synths and a 5-piece orchestra,
a lot of stuff in this one.
VSTs and 2 or 3 trumpets. So if Dason wants to tell us a little bit, like the guitars, bass, and drums are pretty much the same as in Wings.
The mixes for those were pretty much copied from Wings. So if you're curious on the mixing for those, go watch the Wings video. Actually, go watch that before you watch this one, anyways, because we talk about the drums, the bass, the guitar tones, which are all going to be pretty much the same in this song. So maybe the easiest way for this song, since there's so many things, is let's just go through a section at a time and talk about kind of like all the additional arrangement and vocals and synths and orchestral elements that show up. But from the very start,
upwards of 100 homes already lost. Fire crews struggle to contain the flames spreading across the city, while families are left with nowhere to go. Over to you, Alice.
Thanks, Dave. Temperatures this week are soaring in the mid to high 40s, making this one of the hottest, driest summers that the continent has ever seen. Droughts spreading all across the country have put sales at an all-time low for the agriculture industry, damaging crops and putting animals at risk of starvation. What little that can be provided to stores has been bought up within days, and now the government is trying to find alternatives to feed a starving country.
okay, sweet. So let's see what we have going on at the very beginning here. I think the very first thing you hear is this synth here, which has been named Massive 1.
Oh, so that's not actually massive.
It's not even massive.
So yeah, all of those are native instruments, kinetic metal, and they're just a bunch of sound samples of like people dragging stuff across metal sheets and cymbals and whatever,
right.
and processing them and I think I layered like 4 or 5 of those. Just to create this large sort of sound landscape in the back of this opening section.
That's all of these, I think.
Makes it sound real spacey.
Yeah, these are cool sounding. I don't think I did a lot to them mix-wise. I panned them like to the right and the left just to make them wide. Looks like one of them has a bit of EQ on it. Just there must have been some low-end rumble to get rid of, and maybe a whistly frequency to get rid of. But other than that, they're pretty much the way you sent them to me.
No one can hear you whistle in space.
And what's the next thing you hear?
And then those ones that pan in, they must be the massive.
Yeah. Go here. Kind of got like this horn sounding one on the left. I just rolled off some of the low end and panned it to the left. Didn't do a whole lot. Didn't really do anything other than that. This one on the right, I think, is like a sawtooth kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So a little bit more.
I think
there.
strings should be in there as well. Those might be the strings.
Right.
The one above that.
Yeah, there's the strings that come in right after that.
Oh yeah, okay.
So there's those two synths. So then we have a cello and trumpets and a violin come in as orchestral stuff. I mean, mix-wise, just rolling off some low end on the cello. I did not do anything to the trumpets other than pan them and put some reverb on. And the violin, I took some mid-range out because it was getting in the way of your vocals there. So I kind of pulled this, what frequency is this, like 3K back? Because that's where a lot of the clarity in vocals live.
Thanks, Dave. Temperatures this week are
There's also a drum machine. This
Yeah.
drum machine is just an
Wait.
It's from Ableton, I think.
Yeah,
That's-
and those are like Those are like half the first track too. That Octosun track as well. It kind of switches back and forth between that that drum machine sort of sampled sound
It's
and
kind of between this, the drum machine, and
actual
then the
drums.
actual drums. For the drum machine, let's see. It's pretty simple, just like hats, a kick drum, a snare drum, and a tambourine. Like on an individual track level, I didn't do anything to the hats, the kick, and the snare. We just bounced them. I bounced them up from Ableton. They're in the part of the sample pack that came with Ableton back in the day when I used Ableton. Solo these. And then the
I
volume
think
just kind
there's
of
just like
automates that.
a weird delay or something on the cymbals there.
There's a delay on the
hi-hats.
hats, but I think I actually stuck that on in Ableton and printed them that way. It was like I committed to it at the time. Yeah, there's definitely an eighth note delay or something on the hats. As far as mixing goes, I didn't put anything on the individual tracks. I did some on the tambourine, so I'll go find a section of the tambourine. But they're all going to a bus called Drum Machine, where I've got this API compressor. That really, I think the biggest thing I hear that on is the snare drum. It like brings some sustain out of that drum machine snare. And then Kramer HLS, which is a plugin I really enjoy. It's like based off of an old Helios channel strip. All I'm really doing here is, it's funny, these old Helios channel strips had like this frequency selection for the bass band on the EQ, and just turning it on to something like 60 hertz actually causes a bit of a boost at that frequency, even though I don't have the actual EQ boost pushed up at all. So that's just to give it a little bit more thump for that drum machine kick. And then there's a little bit of reverb on that as well. Let's go find a section of the tambourine.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's on the offbeat of that tambourine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one I did a little bit of stuff too because it sounded too much like a tambourine initially, which when you're trying to like make it something really electronic, it kind of sticks out. Like this is what it is without all the stuff I did. It just kind of stood out to me as being like too organic. It almost sounds like someone like ringing a bike bell on the offbeats, you know? It doesn't quite sound electronic enough for what it was supposed to be, so what I did was I gated it. And there's lots of I guess I also distorted it a lot. Let me turn that on because that brings the volume up. And I gated it as well. So it just makes it more of like and it doesn't ring out as much. It's not as obviously a tambourine, I find, when it doesn't like have that sustain to it. And then I also did this. This is like the opposite of the EQ move I do on everything else. I found a frequency in the high mids and just boosted it a bunch. kind of the combination of that feeding into this saturation plugin gives it like, it's very pokey in that one frequency, which is more akin to what drum machines sound like to me. So that's how the drum machine came together. It's like pretty simple kind of sound overall. It's meant to be darker and more laid back than what the acoustic drums are, so that when the real drums come in, they sound big and heavy.
Yeah. And this song really plays into that layering effect that I like not necessarily any one track being very complicated, but like just putting layer upon layer and creating this soundscape that the complexity is in the arrangement and the layers that go on top of it.
Yeah, totally.
We should, while we're in that section, talk about the fact that our very own Chelsea is highlighted in the newscast
That's
part.
right.
And she plays, I believe, Sally, I think
Alice.
I named her.
Alice, yeah.
Alice, yeah, okay. It's like Dave and Alice, yes. So Dave is my one good friend from preschool. He goes by the moniker Griffin on his Twitch streams, and then Chelsea plays Alice there, who's the second newscaster, and I wanted to sort of incorporate like all of my friends into this project in some way, even the ones that are like a little less musical, and so those will hopefully be reprised parts throughout all of these albums.
Yay, I get more parts.
Yeah.
No, I had a lot of fun recording that. And I forgot what song I was going in, so when I listened to the album, I was like startled to hear myself for the first time, and that was fun too.
Nice.
Like, oh wait, that's me.
Looks like there's just a limiter and good old isotope vinyl on the newscast stuff. Make it sound like it's coming out of an old TV.
Under that, I think is... Yeah, I think I found a Creative Commons like free sample of a old tube TV turning on, and then like some static.
Yeah.
Like it took a little while to boot up, and I just threw both of those in the mix and put them in where I wanted it and automated that static volume up, as well as Dave's voice there. It kind of cuts in as well, like he's kind of mid-sentence.
Upwards of 100 homes already lost.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's see what else comes in. So that's kind of like the full first part here, and then we have your vocals come in.
Darling country.
Those were mixed very similar to how they would have been on Tailwind, I think. Your clean vocals on Tailwind. Actually, no, they're different. I see a totally different plugin chain here. So maybe let's look at this. We've got Pro EQ, kind of taking out some low end, taking out some of the low mids too. Notching out a couple of things in the high mids. V comp, and then this MJUC Junior, de-esser, and then of course I have to have the API EQ on everything apparently. So here's the API EQ boosting mid-range. So that's your vocals. Then there's also these like wet vocals that come in after that. Make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. Does anything else come in before then?
There's like a little space in there. But there's a whole bunch of synths in there.
Oh yeah, then this viola comes in. And there's these wet vocals, which... So that's you, and I think the other ones... Is that also you, or is that... That is you?
Yeah, both of those.
How do you
Got
get
an
a high
impressive
note
range.
like
And
that?
so they just add some sort of harmony underneath.
For these guys, it's just some EQ. Wow, okay. What was I cutting from there? That's interesting. It's quite the EQ move. Oh, I just kind of wanted to push these to the background, I think. Yeah, make them sound like they're far away, which is also why there's like a ton of reverb and delay on them. Got those wet
And I think I
vocals.
asked you to throw them way back.
You
like
probably
way
did,
in the
yeah.
back too, because they were more of a color texture. Yeah.
Let's see what else comes in. So the next thing that comes in looks like it's this next section here. We have more vocals. I think Anna's vocals come in, and then there's also another synth.
Well, I think we have those synth hits that come in the beginning there too.
Synth hits. Are you
Yes.
talking about
And maybe that clean
This thing?
guitar as well.
those synth hits?
Yeah, there's some synths and stuff like that just kind of plays in the background.
And then, yeah, you're right. The clean guitars come in that section too. These muted guitars. Those come in. And you said this was kind of like the main musical idea that everything else got built off of, right?
Yes,
that guitar
yeah.
part.
Yeah, so that one riff was sort of the initial idea, and then everything sort of built on top of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, here's these synth hits that come in here. It almost sounds kind of 808-ish in its own way. What's another subtle EQ move here? I have to hear, what did it sound like before? So I kind of pushed it to the background by getting rid of all that mid-range. What does it sound like in context? I think it was just like there's too obviously a little synth thing there. It was kind of it was like distracting, I found, from vocals and other stuff. So 24 decibel cut on the mid-range. And then...
And I think the bass doesn't quite come in yet there, but it doubles those hits when it comes in the next section.
Right. I want to hear what this compressor's
So,
doing.
and that just
Just a second. I have to log in to my Focusrite account.
Oh no.
Jeopardy theme song plays.
Maybe I won't be able to get it. Let's see.
Rest in peace, Mr. Trebek.
Oh, I actually got in. Okay.
Oh, nice.
This would be a great time if we were sponsored by a password manager to be like, what a great moment to tell you we're sponsored, Bitwarden.
No offense
Hey,
to Focusrite, but I don't use their plugins much anymore. So when I built my new computer, I probably just haven't used this plugin since. There we go.
Well, I guess
It's a cool plugin though.
Focusrite won't be a sponsor, but Bitwarden, call us.
Here we go.
Oh.
Alright, so the reason why I wanted to show this is because it's like really aggressive. You can see I'm getting like 20 decibels of compression.
Yeah.
But I have the wet knob turned down a bit, so it's parallel compression, and it's basically just adding a bunch of attack to it. If I turn this off versus turned on. It's just meant to make it sound super punchy, which this Focusrite compressor is really good at doing. I just kind of forgot it existed, so sorry Focusrite. I might use this more now. That's that synth, and then we also have a bunch of vocals come in here. So I think Yeah, Anna's panned to the right, you're panned to the left here. It looks like I'm using pretty much the same vocal chain on Anna's vocals as I did on yours. EQ here looks a little bit different because there was probably some different frequencies in her voice I wanted to notch out.
Yeah, that would be those different formants that in a higher voice that peek through. And
other than that, same compressors, same EQ, same API EQ at the end, which makes sense because like how they're meant to kind of blend together and exist in the same space. The guitar comes back in, that viola comes back in. Am I missing anything else here? Here you can tell that I copied the mix settings from Wings because they're called Wings guitar. Like I copied the channels in.
yeah.
Everything is called Wings guitar,
Nice.
Wings lead.
Gotta keep that sound consistent.
That was the idea.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I didn't want to mix everything from scratch again because this was a big song.
Yeah, that sounds like not
Mm-hmm.
what to do. Work smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's see. What's the next thing that comes in? I think the next thing that comes in is when it gets heavy.
Where's that bass?
We've got your screams pan to the left here too. These ones are a bit different than they would have been in Tailwind because they're not lo-fi sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they were meant to be lo-fi sounding, but I didn't put the lo-fi plugin on them.
No, they weren't. Yeah.
So similar EQ, just cleaning up some mid-range, some areas that sounded harsh. My computer keeps doing that where it like minimizes my my other windows. Here we go. Got a de-esser, saturation knob, doing a bit more than I think it was in the last song. Kind of smooth things out, fills it out a bit, and then after the saturation knob probably just brought up so much volume, I just turned it down a bit with like a simple gain utility plugin. And then there's some reverb and half note delay, quarter note delay on those as well. Wonder, can I view the automation? There we go. Vocals in the song got automated a fair bit too, because depending on how many vocals were happening at once, they get panned to different sides. And there'd be like, I think, different amounts of reverb and stuff on them. The volume would be different for different sections. Lots of automation. What else is there here?
So, actually, this part, while we're still here, layering those like 3 different vocal lines on top of each other, I really had to think about where the placement would go for each of those sort of onsets. So you'll hear that like the screams in Anna's vocals, they follow sort of a similar rhythmic value, but they never start at the same time, and they kind of weave in between each other, where the main vocal, which is Damian, sort of has its own thing, so I didn't have to worry about that too much. But I really had to find those spaces in between there where nothing was going to sort of clash or overwhelm.
You could still hear everything that was going on.
Especially if you want to like be able to pick out individual lines and what they're saying.
Right.
That's very important.
Time has left its ugly mark on all under the same sun. Reaching out.
And then, is this a new synth or did I just copy the other one? What is this? What's different about this than the other one?
I think it's the same.
It's just louder, and it's
Maybe, yeah.
wider, because most of the things you sent me were mono tracks. They weren't stereo. So anytime I wanted something to be kind of pushed out to the sides, I'd have to make it stereo, and that's what I do that with Waves Doubler. Yeah, so just kind of making it a bit louder. Pushing it out to the sides. I think that's the only new thing in that section. And then we go back into another... Oh yeah, the trumpets come in. You get more orchestral stuff coming in.
Yeah.
Another kind of heavy section where Anna's panned to one side, you're panned to the
Yeah.
other side.
I think there's
Okay.
like a sawtooth synth doubling the guitar and bass in there as well.
Yeah, this comes back, but bigger. Oh no, is it this thing? This is the new one. Yeah, this thing.
Yeah. There's your 80s hype synth.
Where's Disco Stew when you need him?
That's
All
my
season.
contender for Eurovision.
We just got to put the drum machine underneath that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Waves doubler to put it out, push it wide because there's vocals and stuff that kind of need to take the attention closer to the center, and then just some EQ to bring the mid-range a little bit back so that it's not like getting in front of any of the vocals. And then after this is the breakdown. Just has like this kind of sawtooth synth. Reinforcing it, and then it goes into the section that has the screaming vocals. And we get a lead guitar too here.
So that's just bringing that back, that initial idea.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's the same kind of melody.
Yeah,
recontextualized.
that was in those muted guitars, but yeah.
I think this
And that's what a lot of this song is.
Ties it all together.
It like just reuses, retextualizes a lot of different parts in varying contexts where I want some of that emotion in. And yeah, like with that solo, like the nightmare part coming back, that's where that sort of peak of that sort of arc over this album comes, is with that's where those anxieties take like full hold, and that's why it like builds up from that like softer sort of like the drum machines and a bunch of strings and stuff to like this very large section, because that's where the pinnacle of those like feelings are coming through, of both Damian's anxieties and Hope's sort of depression taking over, and that's what I really wanted to capture in that mood, especially with like those sort of tesseract-y like
Right.
guitar like chunky riffs.
Yeah, you can really feel that anxiety building back up there at the end too. I think you really capture that well.
Thank you.
definitely hear the Tesseract influence now that you mention it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've got these two synths that have kind of been there throughout the song, reinforcing that as well. And we go back to this section. only thing that really changes there is there's a little bit of automation to kind of bring your voice back into the center for those last couple of lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I love that.
got another new synth. Got this pad. Yeah, why? Sometimes it just puts my plugins right at the bottom. There we go. We got doubler to make it stereo, and then just rolling off some of like the rumbly bottom end on it. I think this guitar is supposed to be similar to what was in Wings, but it sounds more distorted than what we ended up using in Wings.
Yeah. So that is like, it's that exact same chord sequence. It's like a little revised, like I do some more ornamentation, but that is essentially that delay part at the very end of Wings, but it's
right.
put into a 4/4 context instead of a 6/4.
Right.
I love the way it sounds.
It's very 90s sounding to me almost. I don't know what it is about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like that guitar plus that synth, and then I think everything else kind of comes in at the same time. We get like these muted guitars that come in.
Slap bass.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if there's a different... Doesn't look like I used a different bass tone here. The bass just got louder. It's a pretty aggressive bass tone. It sounds cool. Then we have all this orchestral stuff that comes in, cellos and viola, and the violins come back. Kind of grows again here. We get the trumpets coming in, and there's another synth.
That's just doubling the bass part.
Right.
Oh, and we got my little dance breakdown.
So I think there's some fun automation happening here. What are these two tracks? What's this one? Nothing. We got like that saw synth, and there's this thing,
Yeah.
which I think, let me turn what I did. Turn my plugins off. That's what it sounded like initially. I put this like...
Yeah, I put the like scoop up on both of those.
Right.
On my end. Yeah.
And then I put doubler on this guy to make it wider. And then I think I also, let me check. Okay, here we go. So I also put a bit crusher on here. And like the wet kind of dry mix increases as it goes on, so that it kind of, the sound kind of breaks down over the course of it.
Do we have the yeah, we had the drum machine come back just for that tiny little section, and
Yeah, and I think there's some like, I did something here. I boosted that snare hit a bunch too.
yeah.
Yeah, the drum machine comes back, you get like a little dancey little dancey break, and then it kind of goes into the climax of the song.
And this is where just like throw everything that came back in before. I think almost all of the tracks out of the 67 are utilized at the very end. Kind of grows.
Yeah, it looks like the next kind of... I really like this synth. This is a very cool addition.
Yeah. So that synth is those guitar arpeggios that are in the Wings chorus. So it just plays the exact same thing in a 4/4 feel.
Right.
From those guitars and at the faster tempo as well.
And then I suppose it's worth mentioning here, there is some like funny business with the drums. So basically, I could not play that kick drum pattern. And so what happened was, and I know I used a sample for the kick, but I think if I bring up the natural kick, let me just listen. Oh, interesting. Wait a minute. Maybe I didn't... There's something I seem to remember doing, but I don't hear it now. Let me see.
What
Let's go
about the
through.
kick pattern made it hard to play?
It was just fast, and this was a couple years ago. I think I think now I could probably play it, but at the time, I tried for quite a while, and it was just very sloppy.
Fair. I mean, I definitely couldn't play it, so...
So what I had originally tried doing, and I guess it didn't end up making the final cut, is I recorded a sample of just like me playing my kick drum by itself, and then I like had MIDI written to trigger the sample of my kick drum playing, and I thought I had baked it into all these audio tracks so that if you like listen to the room track or something, you'd still hear the kick in it. But it looks like I decided I didn't like the way that sounded because I didn't use it. So it's really just programmed kick here. Let's see what else comes in here.
Everything. This is so
Pad comes in. Got your vocals that come in. It's cool, like all the metal kind of elements leave and you're just left with all the more mellow orchestral stuff. Yeah, the EP kind of ends the way it started, with like just the orchestra. I suppose there's a synth there. There wasn't a synth right at the beginning of the EP, but it's kind of cool how it ends and starts in a similar note with like more orchestral
Yeah,
stuff.
it goes full circle. Yeah. I think a lot of what I have for the Letters from a Lost Soul arc, they all sort of start with this cinematic orchestra sort of intro with some dialogue and whatever, and like sort of set the tone, and then like get into more of the rock elements as they go
Right.
on. But there's always sort of this like overture. In the next album that's coming up, it's going to be quite different because that is supposed to be like full on space. So instead of like those orchestral, like more organic elements like are in Letters from the Lost Soul, in Lost Atlas, it's a lot of them are like these synth building intros instead of the orchestra, and like heavily reverbed pianos, very much like reminiscent of like classic sci-fi soundtracks, and then yeah, a bunch of pad synths and stuff. And it's all sort of interesting how you can take those same sort of ideas, but then like one's very much like a modern sort of sci-fi, and one is going to be more, or like this arc is going to be more organic and like down to earth, raw.
Or not?
Back to that Lord of the Rings in space feeling.
Yeah, and I think that is pretty much all we've got for this EP.
We are out of channels to show you.
I feel
Out of material.
I feel like I know so much more than I did when I started, and so much more than anybody ought to, but everybody should. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me, and I guess we'll see you guys on the next album.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.